Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, the bishops, and the elders of Jim Master. Well, peace and salutations to the elect. My name is Aina. The title of the video is The Lord Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai of hosts mustered the hosts to battle. Right. And basically, I took this directly from Isaiah 13. Right. Started at 4. It says Isaiah 13 and 4. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord Yahweh Bashmiel shall host mustered the hosts of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord Yahweh Bashmiel shall and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. And basically, this goes into what's brewing right behind the scenes is World War III. Right, and the Lord Yahweh is stirring up the tensions and causing these great powers to butt heads. And we have Iran in Venezuela now, and we have Russia in Venezuela now. And let me play this video. All right, so first video, I got two videos to play.
Something dramatic is happening in Venezuela, and it could shake up the entire global politics. A Russian military aircraft, the massive IL-76 transport plane, has quietly landed in Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. Now, that's not any regular passenger jet, right? This is the kind of a plane usually used by Russia's defense ministry and maybe the Wagner mercenary group for moving weapons, soldiers, and carrying out secret operations as well. So, naturally, the big question is this: what is a Russian military plane really doing in America's backyard? Now, to understand this, we need to rewind a little bit. The United States and Venezuela have been at odds for years now. Washington accuses Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of everything, from drug trafficking to election fraud, while Russia calls him a victim of Western bullying. Now, for Putin, Venezuela is more than just an ally, right? It is a symbol of defiance against the US. Now, tensions are rising fast. The US military has recently deployed an aircraft carrier strike group near Venezuelan water, officially for anti-drug operations, but let's be honest here, it's also a show of force and a warning to both Maduro and Putin. And then comes the twist: Russia's IL-76 landing in Caracas. Now here, analysts believe that it could be carrying military supplies, radar system, or even Russian defense experts to help Venezuela modernize its air force. Others say that it might be a part of a larger plan, just to set up a Russian logistics hub in Latin America, something that would make Washington really, really nervous. This is such a big deal because Venezuela sits just a few hundred miles off the US coast and holds one of the world's largest reserves. During the Cold War, also, the United States spent decades keeping the Soviets out of Latin America, but now Putin seems to be redrawing that map, testing how far he can push into America's zone of influence. And this isn't just about Venezuela. In recent years, Russia has been strengthening ties with the anti US governments, from Cuba to Nicaragua to Iran. The message from Moscow very clear: if the US can harm Ukraine and surround Russia, we can show up near your borders too. Well,
Yeah, so I'll grab this. Joel 3, of course, the weak saying that they are strong. This is what's happening, right? The Most High Yahweh is putting this thing together, right? And we are in World War III already. Some people can argue that it probably started around, basically Russia entering into Ukraine, right? Or whatever the case may be, because obviously we have the European nations and America backing Ukraine, right, supplying them with weapons, right? And this is what is called a proxy, right? And now this same proxy is about to happen in Venezuela. If Trump actually go ahead and move on and does something, because so far the only reports that we got is him destroying fishing boats out in the ocean. It says Joel 3 and 9, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. It says, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, let the weak say, I am strong. And ultimately, for a long time now, America has been a great power, right, that control basically everyone. And nations pretty much just bowed. But now, as you can see, they're no longer bending the knee, right? They're fighting back. So I will play this Iran one right here.
A new front is opening, and this time it's not in the Middle East. It's in America's backyard. Yes, in a stunning escalation, Iran has entered the US Venezuelan standoff, warning Washington against what it calls dangerous military provocation near Latin America. Well, Tehran says that the US is playing with fire, sending bombers, warships, and spy planes dangerously close to Venezuelan waters. Hello and welcome to Times XP. I'm Dhruti 3, and what's really going on here? Let's talk about that. In the past few weeks, the US military has been making some very bold moves in the Caribbean. B-1B Lancer bombers, the same ones that are capable of carrying nuclear weapons, have been seen flying dangerously close to Venezuelan aircraft. While the USS Gravely, a US Navy destroyer armed with advanced missiles, have also docked in Trinidad and Tobago, just a few hundred kilometers from Venezuelan shores. Well, Washington insists that it's all a part of anti-drug operations. But you know what? Not everybody's buying that story here. Iran and Venezuela say that something else is cooking here. According to them, this isn't just a drug cartel, it's about power, oil, and politics. Tehran believes that the US is setting the stage for a false flag operation, a stage attack that could be blamed on Venezuela to justify the military intervention. Now remember, both Iran and Venezuela are under heavy US sanctions, and both have been teaming up for survival. Over the last few years, Iran has sent oil tankers, drones, and even engineers to help Venezuela rebuild its crippled refineries. In return, Venezuela has opened its ports and markets to Iranian industries. Now, that's the partnership the US really does not like it to hear. And now, with American warplanes circling the entire region, Iran says that it will not stay silent if its ally is threatened. The Iranian foreign minister issued a strong warning, saying that any aggression against Venezuela will be a threat to global peace. Analysts are calling it a proxy flashpoint.
Right. They're calling it a proxy flashpoint. We have First Thessalonians, right? Five. Sorry. First Thessalonians 5:3. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as to fall upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And we already know President Nero 47 was supposed to be that president of peace. That's what he came in saying peace. In the beginning it was the no wars. I'll stop wars in 24 hours and all that. Now, we're getting to the point where he's testing nuclear missiles, right? He went from denuclearized to testing nuclear missiles now because basically no one was listening to him. Pursuant to Joel chapter 3, the weak are making themselves strong, right? They're preparing themselves, and ultimately, basically, America is also now going to go ahead and do the same. Let me grab this. Probably grab the NL2. All right, so Nahum 3:11, it says, "And you, Nineveh," right? This is representation of America. It says, "And you, Nineveh, will also stagger like a drunkard. You will hide for fear of the attacking enemy. All your fortresses will fall. They will be devoured like the ripe figs that fall into the mouths of those who shake the trees." And pursuant to Ezekiel 38, we understand that it's going to be Russia spearheading this thing with many allies joined unto Russia. And right now, Russia is unveiling new missile capabilities every month, damn near. Basically saying that it's untouchable. It can, go around any air defenses and things like that. So we're seeing now, the things that we have been prophesying coming to pass, where Russia is going to be able to attack, and everyone else, like Israel and America, they won't have defenses, nor bars, nor gates to stop what's to come. It says, your troops will be as weak and helpless as women. The gates of your land will be opened wide to the enemy and set on fire and burn. It says, get ready for the siege, store up water, strengthen the defenses. And this is, Trump going into the Iron Dome. He wanted the Iron Dome. He said he reinvented the army. He basically upgraded it. They have the Space Force, right? And now they're going to testing missiles. Nuclear missiles. It says, strengthen the defenses, go into the pits to trample clay and pack it into molds, making bricks to repair the walls. But the fire will devour you, the sword will cut you down, the enemy will consume you like locusts, devouring everything they see. there will be no escape, even if you multiply like swarming locusts. And that is looking like it's the case. You know, it is the case. And you can see that by the missiles that Putin is unveiling. It says your merchants have multiplied until they outnumber the stars, but like a swarm of locusts, they strip the land and fly away. Your guards and officials are also like swarming locusts. They crowd together in the hedges on a cold day, but like locusts, they fly away when the sun comes up. All of them will fly away and disappear. And even now, we have generals and whatnot leaving the military, right? Because of the cruel Lord that's ruling without counsel. You know, he recently said that he sent CIA agents to Venezuela, and those CIA agents got caught, right? Because he's saying that they're there. It says, your shepherds are asleep, O Syrian king. Your princes lie dead in the dust. Your people are scattered across the mountains with no one to gather them together. And pretty much they're everywhere. America is Venezuela, Israel. You know, they're hovering around Taiwan still, you know. Says, there is no healing for your wound. Your injury is fatal. All who hear of your destruction will clap their hands for joy. Where can anyone be found who has not suffered from your continual cruelty? And that's where you get Habakkuk, right? That's you know, they say how long? Uh, did it Habakkuk 2:4 says, look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked. But the righteous will live by their faithfulness to Yahweh Bashmi Awashah. And that's all we can do. We have to lean on Yahweh Bashmi Awashah in these last days as the enemy come down with great wrath. Right? We can see things brewing here, you know, in America regarding ICE, the National Guard, and the squeeze, right? Amos 8 and 11, the family of the word coming. Censorship and all of these things are happening. It's all here. It says Habakkuk 2:5, wealth is treacherous, and the arrogant are never at rest. They open their mouths as wide as the grave, and like death, they are never satisfied. In their greed, they have gathered up many nations and swallowed many people. But soon their captors will taunt them. They will mock them, saying, what sorrow awaits you thieves? Now you will get what you deserve. You've become rich by extortation, but how much longer can this go on? And that's the point. How long? How long can America continue to, oh, I'm going to Venezuela now, we're going to do a regime change and take all your oil and all your things, and set up this puppet leader, right, who's already bending down to serve Israel. You know, they got some chick over there, you know, ready to take the president of you know, Venezuela's place already, and she's already talking about how she's going to put an embassy in there for Israel and all of that. Right, Habakkuk 2:7, it says, suddenly your debtors will take action. They will turn on you and take all you have while you stand trembling and helpless. You know, so ultimately, you know, Trump is now testing nuclear missiles. You know, getting ready for the siege, pretty much, because these people are turning on him, and it's clear as day. He, you know, before he went to China, he issued this statement here about testing the nuclear missiles.
Donald Trump is now ordering nuclear weapons to be tested in a completely deranged rant. He's confused about nuclear weapons. He doesn't know who has the most nuclear weapons. Now, I first saw this headline this morning. Trump wants to test nuclear weapons. And I thought to myself, oh no, it's another authoritarian delusion. But I also thought to myself, damn, this guy really doesn't want the Epstein files out there. We have audio from Air Force One of Trump talking about this just hours ago. Let's take a listen.
It's been a very bad war, too.
Sort of with the nuclear announcement, just one more on the nuclear announcement. Do you worry that we're entering a more risky environment when it comes to nuclear issues?
No, I don't think so. I think we have it pretty well locked up. But we have more than anybody. When I see them testing, I say, well, if they're going to test, I guess we have to test. I'd like to see a denuclearization because we have so many, and Russia has some. Russia's second, and China's third, and China will catch up within 4 or 5 years. I think de-escalation would be they would call it denuclearization, would be a tremendous thing. And it's something we are actually talking to Russia about that, and China would be added to that if we do something. Thank you all. It was a great success. It was
Trump's plan. I mean, think about it. What he's saying is he wants to start a nuclear arms race to denuclearize. Trump then took to Truth Social, where he said, quote, the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. Now, this is not true. Russia has more nuclear weapons than any other country. If he doesn't even, so first of all, I would be shocked if Trump knew what the nuclear triad was, which of course are airplane-based nuclear weapons, land-based nuclear weapons, and sea-based nuclear weapons, like from submarines. I doubt Trump even knows what the triad is. But Trump also doesn't know who has the most nukes. If you don't understand fundamental basics about this issue, are you really well positioned to guide policy? I would say no. But Trump says the United States has more nuclear weapons than any other country. That's not true. He continues. This was accomplished, including a complete update and renovation of existing weapons during my first term in office. That's also a lie. Because of the tremendous destructive power, I hated to do it, but I had no choice. Russia's second, China's a distant third, but will be even within 5 years. Because of other countries' testing programs, I have instructed the Department of War, it's the Department of Defense, by the way, to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President Donald J. Trump. A reporter on Air Force One then asked Trump about the post. Why did you post about nuclear testing? Why are you doing that? Here's what Trump had to say.
About resuming nuclear testing, what prompted you to do that right before the meeting?
It had to do with others. They seem to all be nuclear testing.
Russia?
We have more nuclear weapons than anybody. We don't do testing. We've halted it many years ago. But with others doing testing, I think it's appropriate that we do also.
Any details around the testing, sir? Like where, when?
It'll be announced. We have test sites. It'll be announced.
So,
so pretty much subtle way that these devils come and try to, tell you that, let's stop doing, nukes and all of this. It's not working anymore because the Most High Yahweh Bashmi Awashah is stirring up these people, right? And the weak are saying that they're strong. They don't care. Trump is saying denuclear. Every time he said they do another nuclear test. Let me do a KJV here. Psalms 55:20. It says, "He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant." And he has made a lot of covenant, right, with the other nations. Talking about Edom, has made a lot of covenants with other nations. Different treaties of peace and different things that they have in play. And these nations are coming out and saying that America has pretty much not abided by none of these things that are set up. Psalms 55:21, it says, "The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart." And we know Revelations 20:7 says that Edom will go out and deceive the nations and make war with Russia. So every time they say they want peace with Russia, that's not the case. And we understand that. We know that, right? It says the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. He wants to try to cripple his enemies before the attack, and you can even look at the Syria situation. They got Putin, tangled up with Ukraine, and then, said peace and safety pretty much, and we're going to cease fire and all this, and did a whole roll on Syria, which was an ally of Putin, and they conquered that. And now pretty much what we have in Venezuela is a same scenario coming where they're doing another, proxy, because America is fighting Venezuela, or they're about to start fighting. They're already there. The ships and everything is there, right? But now you have Russia and Iran there with support, basically, So now Venezuela is a proxy of Russia and Iran. So it says in warfare, proxies are the combatants in a conflict that are supported by larger powers who act in their stead, allowing those larger powers to advance their interests without engaging in direct military confrontation. And this is what America did with Ukraine, right? And it is continuing to do. And now Russia and Iran are doing the same thing in America's backyard. So, there's no peace and there's no safety. These smaller groups or nations are supported through means like military, financial, and logistical aid, and they fight on behalf of larger countries known as patrons. The proxy groups or factions are the proxies, while the outside supporters are called the patrons. So this is what's going to be taking place in Venezuela if Trump decides to go in there. Right, and of course, this is just the Lord Yahweh Bashmi Awashai mustering the hosts to the battle, right, stirring up those tensions and just, setting the stage pretty much. So, Lord willing, you were edified from this lesson. Shalom to the whole select, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.